Windshield. Okay. I had to eliminate another chute. It wasn't done right. And I was debating follow-up to the Russell Boats thing with Steve Briggs and Matthew Carlson. And what it's like. How could I do it? What is it? What is it like operating a boat? Like, these are small tugs. Matthew belongs to a crew, and I respect that. And he has his own boats, and you gotta respect that. But if it's not your boat, and you're operating one of these machines which is old as you are, or I am, sorry, and you're operating a boat named Orville, that's your godfather's the namesake of your godfather, and you can't swim. Oh, what's it like? Well, like any Northern Ontario kid, you're going to be around water all the time, and I used to know how to swim. I guess I can float out of problems, but nothing big. So, what's it like? Like when you come on a shift and you're being paid for it. You know what I mean? No, you don't. Okay. Technically, according to the mill records, you're a boat operator, a driver, whatever. According to the SIU, you're a Marine captain. Doesn't matter if you're first mate, second mate, off papers, or no papers at all, you're the captain of the boat. So, and by saying you're a tug captain, it's a fast way of saying stuff, right? You know, boat operator, well, what does that mean? But I'm a tug captain, people can relate to that. But Russell boats weren't quite like, our entire fleet was made of Russell boats, which is a good choice, except for one, which was the Peninsula, and that was a mistake from the Canadian Navy. And it was never a very good tug. I don't care what the people in Marathon say. They tugged it up they put it on shore as a hysterical monument or something. But the real boats are made by Russell, and they were first and foremost, I'd say, the Martin E. Johnson, Polygon, Orville, Cancel, Mark Whitman, and they all did different jobs. They all did different roles. Some of those boats are big enough that they need 2, 3, 4 crew. And if you work on a tug as a crew, it's slightly different. Like my crew experience on a tug was because I was a beachcomber, and Hugo Johnson was the captain, and you had different roles and different jobs, or whatever he assigned you. You better know it. It wasn't a question of guess by golly. It was whether or not you know it. And here comes trouble. So you had to know your work, right? What's it like? When you come on shift, and the first thing you look at, and it's got to be the weather. The weather rules because you're working outside. I'm going to let these people pass. I'm going to take a break. This will be a break in the storyline. Okay, 10-4. Okay, back to the work. So you stand on shore and you look at the weather. It tells you a whole lot of stuff. You got to set up. You got to find out whether or not the wind's coming in the right direction. Sometimes it changes. Or sometimes it changes so late in the shift, the other guy doesn't change the booms over. Because there's a... Let me see, I got to know the direction. There's a western half and there's an eastern half to the wood yard. Pond, the big one. The pond goes from Skin Island over to the pump house that was by the mill and to Cummings Beach. And that's a big 2 miles in there. That's a lot of wood. When it fills up, that wood will last 5, 6, 7 days, 8 days, or more. Depends on how fast you are. Okay, so when I got on shift, I looked at the weather. I wanted to find out where I'd be setting the booms, and that would be probably the first thing I did in the first 15 minutes of the shift, was reset the where the center was, like the center boom. Center boom would be either to the right or the left of the pond, the trapezoid, depending on from which way, the opposite to where the wind was coming from. Because you use the wind to help you move the wood into the pond. You use the flow meters, you use the wind, you use the wave action. But they all played a role, so you had to know the weather. Down to the dock. Very often the boat was left running, and then they nudged it up against, other operators nudged it up against an angle between the boom and the pier, a little pier, and it just stayed there and puttered away like it was anchored in. They rarely tied it up because they wanted to get away fast. So you had your weather, you took a quick look at the boat, see if it looked okay. And then you stepped on the boat. Unlike other larger tugs or larger ships, it's very important, that first step. Because it tells you how much water you got in the bilge. The bilge is at the bottom of the hull where leaking water collects and could lead to all sorts of problems. And I usually followed a shift where their boat operator was so lazy. Oh my God, he was so lazy. He would never check the oil, check the water, check the rad. He'd never check anything. So I pretty well clean first. One time I came in there, and you should know the feeling of a sinking boat. It's like stepping on a waterbed wearing bear claw snowshoes. I mean, it's just so really weird. But you know right away, I stepped on there, and this one time this boat was, Orville was about 2 inches of water line from sinking. It was almost up to the electrics in the motor. I could see it sloshing. And I was pumping away for 5 minutes just to get control of that thing. It was pumping away, and I was hoping it wasn't a big leak. No, the guy hadn't bothered pumping it out on his entire shift. And probably the guy before him didn't bother clearing it out, so... pump, and it was fast and furious. Of course, you'd think after 30 years, the company put in an automatic bilge pump, right? an automatic, it tells it, switches on and pumps out the bilge. No, you had to pump it out by hand. Generally every shift, there was about 4 or 5 pumps, and then once that was done, you try to take a look down below where the propeller shaft went into the through the hull at the back, and you were looking at the pump packing, or the seal, and the seals were made of like regular water pumps, like cotton, oiled cotton or greased cotton, and one type, and the other types are rubber seals, for a propeller shaft. And with the cotton type of propeller seal, packing they call it, it's supposed to leak a little bit. If it dries right out, it gets overheated, rots out the packing, then all of a sudden, whoosh, you got a big leak, and then you got problems. So you can't win for trying. It's got to leak a little bit. So you looked at that, check the oils. On the Ababaca, I had a transmission oil to check. On the I had both. I had transmission. We didn't have to worry about maintenance because that was done by the garage, because it was a diesel engine, and they looked after it. Refueling was no problem because these things ran for 2 weeks straight, no refueling. And generally the Shell Oil, Mr. Barker's Shell Oil came down and filled her up once a week. And that was plenty of gas. So, you know, those things didn't burn much gas for such a small little engine. You could go up to Thunder Bay and back in twice at about 80% throttle and about 4 or 5 knots. They weren't. Those are boat wasn't very fast, but these little boats behave differently. Like I said, you stood on deck and you could feel what the boat was doing. And then you got your put on your vest, check the oils, put on your vest, check your bow lines. You should have a front line. I always check for a front line. Check to see if you had a pike, a long pole or a short pole pike. You prefer a long pole because you need a lot of room sometimes. And a tow with the hook. That was really important. A tow with a hook, middle hook, big thick one, so you could just grab the boom chains. That was about it. That was your check-in. Oils, lubrications, you know. So, and that happened every shift, and that was part of your coming on the deck shift. So they don't put that in the archives, what it's like. And you're a commander, but you can't rely on anybody else because you're the only crew, and it all depends on you. It landed on your shoulders, or the foreman's shoulders, because they picked you. That's how it usually worked. So that's the way it goes. Okay.